Hello everybody and welcome once again. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're new to the channel, remember to hit that like and subscribe button since it goes a really long way in helping to grow the channel so that we can continue to bring you awesome videos like this one. Let's jump right in. Alright, so the position that we're going to be studying today is one that I believe is very important to know because of how commonly it comes up in practice. This is a position that appears time and time again in our games. And even though the defensive method is relatively simple, it's really easy to lose this game if you don't know exactly what you're aiming for. Now, the main problem that the defending side has in this position is that the king is kind of confined to these three squares, right? The moment you get too far out and trying to assist with stopping this pawn, there's a very famous method here, which is, for instance, if in this position black goes king to f7, white goes king to f3. Now white's plan is going to bring the king all the way up so they can assist in the pawn pushing forward, right? So that the rook can move out of the way and the pawn can make its way to a8. So then the king goes to e7, which is a losing move, and here white responds with a7. Now the problem here is we're going to see the king is not getting in time to the queenie square, right? So if you realize you've messed up, you try to go back, but it's way too late because now you have rook to h8. Now you vacate the queenie square for the pawn, and of course if you take with the rook, it appears to be that the pawn is undefended, but there's always rook h7 check, and then you take the rook over here on a7. So for this reason, the king can never go too far away from these three squares. Luckily, there is a defensive method, though, and that consists of bringing our rook, or the defending rook, to its own third rank. And then from here, with the assistance of the king, can bother this king enough so it doesn't cross over, and at the same time keep an eye on the a6 pawn. Now what would this look like in practice? So knowing that the plan here is to bring the rook over to our own third rank, to the defending side's third rank, the first move is going to be the very strong rook to a5. And so then here white continues with his own plan of bringing the king as closely as possible to the pawn and trying to assist with it advancing and ultimately queening. And then after king to f3, rook f5 check, king to e4, and finally we have reached our desired destination of bringing the king, or excuse me, the rook over to the f6 square. Now why is this a draw, right? So there's several attempts here that white can try. The main one is that they're going to be stubborn and they're going to try to continue to push the white king up the board. So for example, we have king to d5, and to that, here we see the idea. Black is going to start bothering with checks along the side. So we have rook to f5 check. White says, no problem, I'm still going all the way up to b7, you can't stop me, which is true, but we have rook to f6 check, king b7, and rook to f7 check. And as we can see here, the problem is you really can't escape the checks no matter where you go, right? So black is going to check, check, check. Now let's say, for instance, like in this position, white has realized, okay, like if I stay anywhere near my pawn, they're just going to check me until the end of times. So let me just go back and take away this f5 square, see what you come up with then. Well, the thing is, the plan is always to maintain the rook on the third rank. On our own third rank, it's defending third rank, okay? So once the king makes it to e5 and we can't check anymore along the side, we just move over with rook to b6. And then we're going to just stay on our own third rank. The king comes to e4, nothing to worry about. Rook b6, and we're just going to stay there the whole time. So you might be thinking, okay, so the king came to e5. We played rook b6. Well, let's leave our king alone now, because if we try to bring our king closer this way, the rook is just going to move to f6. And if we stay here, the rook is just going to stay on b6. So what's left to move? Let's try to advance our pawn then, because obviously moving the king isn't going to make any progress. So let's say in this position, white attempts to go with a7. Dangerous move, right? And we're all of a sudden threatening. We're just going to move the rook out of the way and push our pawn forward to a8. Now, granted, we wouldn't be able to keep the queen, but black would be forced to sacrifice his rook for the queen now on a8. So to this maneuver, black simply responds with rook to b5 check. And once the king moves, we place the rook behind the pawn. We have to, right? Because otherwise, white would just move the rook out of the way and make way for the pawn. We wouldn't be there in time, so the rook has to be directly behind the pawn. And so once the king starts going back to c6, it's kind of the same idea, but now we're doing it from behind rather than from the side. So the king comes to c6, and we drop all the way back to a1, so that when the king comes to b7, now we start giving the checks from behind. Rook b7 check, king to c6, rook to c1 check, king to b5. And now, so the idea is that white is going to try to chase the rook away here from the checks. And in this position, we have to be careful. This is white's last attempt at trying to win the position. Obviously, rook to b1 check loses to king a2. Right now, the rook can no longer stay behind the pawn, and there's nothing that's stopping this rook from just moving itself out of the way and queening the pawn, okay? So it's for that reason that in this position, instead of giving check on b1, we want to make sure to play rook to a1. Rook to a1, now the rook can no longer move because we're going to take the pawn, and as soon as the king tries to step in a little bit closer with king b2, we just go all the way back, or forward in this case, with rook to a6, and it's a drawn position. So it's kind of the same idea if white were to try this a little bit earlier on in the variation, right? So this is the first move of the position. This is the position that we started out on. And we start off with rook to a5. Strong room. Remember, the idea is to bring the rook over to its own third rank, okay? So then the king tries to move forward. We have rook f5 check, king e4, rook f6. Here they could try the same idea of a7, but it's the same thing. As soon as the pawn moves up to the 7th rank, the rook is now going to move itself behind the pawn, and essentially we have the same exact position that we just saw. This one is actually even easier to defend than the one with the rook on the 3rd rank. So once the pawn makes it to a7, the rook drops all the way back, and it's going to keep an eye on the pawn from behind. As long as the pawn is on the 6th rank, then the rook places itself on the 3rd rank, and that's how they hold the draw. So this is going to be the same exact thing. Remember, once the king comes to b3, we don't want to give a check on b1 because then king a2 is absolutely losing. Okay, we want to go rook to a1 so that they can never remove our rook from keeping our eye on the pawn. And this position, knowing how to play this position for sure, is going to save us a lot of heartache, and it's going to save us a lot of positions because this is a rook endgame that actually appears many, many times in practice. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.